Housing market ice age. What does that even mean? Well, the subtitle, if you see it, says if you don't already own a home, you're out of luck. Well, how could that be the case? Aren't there houses for sale? Houses aren't being torn down. Shouldn't be able to buy one. Well, here's what happened. For the years between about 2010 and 2020, there was a very unique time in the housing market where not a lot of houses were built. A lot of people moved into houses. Interest rates were low, and the population grew quickly. So what happened was there was a housing crash in 2008, as we know. From 2008 to maybe 2013 or 14, builders really slowed down constructing new homes. In 14 and 15, it started to ramp up a little bit. But a lot of builders who even wanted to build homes were out of business. They were bankrupt. They got into some other field. They maybe went to work for larger companies. So it took a while for that to ramp back up. And in 2014 and 15, there started to be some construction and people started to ramp up building. Interest rates were low. It was kind of a good time and the market started to increase. But then you had the pandemic hit in 2019. So things stopped. And again, a lot of those builders who were just starting to get back on their feet got hit again and they said, forget it, this time I'm out. And people got their incentives, they got enhanced PPP loans, they got a lot of things that kept them from having to actually construct homes. Well, in 2020, the inflection point was about mid-year in 2020, June or July. There was all of a sudden this huge rush of people that wanted to buy homes. And at the same time, sellers weren't quite as keen on doing it because most people who already owned a home had locked in an interest rate from between 3 and maybe 5%, most in the upper 3s, low 4s. Even if you bought a house in 2015 at a 7 or 8% mortgage, once the rates went down to 3%, you refinanced, right? So everybody had a loan that was in the 3 to 4% range. Well, in 2020, there was this huge rush of buyers, people paying overpriced for homes, and that lasted for about 6 months. And then all of a sudden, the sellers realized, I don't want to sell my house because if I sell my house, not only am I selling my home, but I'm also selling my 3% mortgage. And now the rates are 7 or 8%, almost double in many cases. So even to buy this same house they were in was going to cost $1,000 more per month. So that locked the sales market in place. There's still some houses on the market, but they're usually what we call left-handed houses, meaning that they're not the most desirable homes. They may have bad floor plans, not updated, structural problems, bad locations, bad lots. There's not a huge supply of inventory that's desirable homes. At the same time, the population of people who are the echo boomers, Gen X, millennials, are now coming into the housing market and they want to buy a house. They want to be a homeowner. They don't want to rent anymore, especially since rents are going up. But the baby boomers or the older generation, they're not moving. They're not going anywhere. They don't want to go into retirement homes after they saw what happened during the pandemic. So there's this perfect storm of factors coming into play that's keeping the inventory low. In addition, in 2020 and 21, there was a lumber price spike where the cost of lumber went from $400 per thousand board feet to over $1,500. So builders pulled back again. Look, after so many times starts and stops and builders get whacked with housing crash in 2008, pandemic in 2019, lumber prices in 2020 and 21, a lot of builders throw up their hands and say, I'm out. 3 strikes, I'm out. I don't want to do this anymore. Plus, it's hard labor. At the same time, a lot of builders who were experienced, working in trade for 15, 20 years, it takes a toll physically on the body. It takes a toll physically on your ability to work, especially as you get older. If you're a general contractor, you've been working for 20 years, now you're in your 50s, maybe 60s, you want to retire. There was no replacement for this labor coming into the market for people who are in their 20s and 30s, because that would have happened around the time the housing crash hit. So there was no replacement employees for the building industry. So now you can't find people, even if you want to build homes. In addition, the U.S. is about 5 to 6 million homes short of what's needed to house everybody. Even before this real estate boom in 2020, there was already a shortage of homes of about 5 million houses. And now you have a large number of people coming into the housing market that want homes. It would take 15 to 20 years just to account for that backlog of needed houses at the current rate of building. And the rate of building is actually going lower because it's more expensive to build homes. You have a difficulty getting permits, you have a difficulty getting approvals through the system, and now you have what's called finance lockdown, meaning that the companies that would finance construction, these bridge loans, they're not financing, even at a high rate. You can get a mortgage if you pay 7%, but you can't get a bridge loan to construct a home as a contractor. All this is coming together to make the housing crisis get even worse. There was a little bit of some breathing room that happened at the end of 2022, maybe beginning of 23, but already we're seeing now, watching Zillow, watching some of the markets, the prices are back on the rise again. We're seeing homes in normal areas of hot markets that are a normal 3-2, 15 to 1,800 square feet in some of these boom towns selling for $700,000, $800,000, $900,000. South Florida, Southern California, Boise, Idaho, Arizona, through the roof, right? And if you do a mortgage calculator, even on a $600,000 house with a normal down payment of 10%, which would be 60 grand, you're going to see a mortgage payment with taxes and insurance of $6,000 or $7,000 a month, right? In order to make that a third of your income, you need to be making 200, 250 grand a year. And there's people who do that, right? 200 grand a year is now not out of reach for a lot of people. But are there that many that can afford all these homes? And if there is, what happens to the downstream supply? For somebody making 100 grand to have a house be less than a third of your take-home income, you got to find a house that's 300 grand or less. Where do those homes exist, right? There's still houses that are 200 grand, 250 grand, 300 grand, but you have to look very hard for them, and a lot of times they're not exactly what you want as a home buyer. So, that being said, if you are looking at real estate, according to the article, you saw the link on the screen, if you're not already in a home as a home buyer, you may be locked out for the next decade until things change, or even if they change back to a robust building environment.